Okay, so again, good afternoon to all of you. I know you have difficulty in your signals, internet connections. So good afternoon, Angel. So for our last lesson, for the last week of our classes, we're going to have Basic Principles of Landscape Design, our lesson 2 by Gail Hansen. So this is just about landscape designs, no? So, and the elements and principles of landscaping. So when we talk about landscaping, it's always been an art and a science, no? Kasi, and it's, meron siyang involved na principle. So, they work on a canvas, which is distinctly different from other art forms. So it means it's an art which shows changing the plant's growth, the environmental conditions, and use of space. And so landscape designers process systematically considers the aspects of the land, the environment, the growing plants, and the needs of the user or yung ating ano no, for our pleasure, visually pleasing and functional and ecologically healthy na design. So these are all the the different important aspects of landscaping. Okay. Okay, so moving on. When we say landscape again, it is the art of designing or the art and science of designing growing plants, the use of space and environmental conditions, no? As stated here, the art, no? And we are actually modifying them for our use, no? To make it visually pleasing, functional, and ecologically healthy. Right. Okay. So, ako lang siyang ano ha, mag-screenshots ako dali. Okay, so again, that is how we defined landscaping. So hopefully, in your own backyard, you can also do so, no? Your own landscaping. Although we have been actually, I know we are very familiar with landscaping, no? Day to day, kasi siguro if you have your, if you have your own house, no, kung wala mo nag ano diha na rent balay o kaya maski nag-rent mo balay, if you have your own space, you must have mga different flowers and they are arranged systematically or visually pleasing for us, no? Kasi kung nagkatag lang po na dara, more na siyang forest. So what are these elements and principles, no? It usually begins by determining the needs and desires of the user or the condition of the site. So the designer, so if the designer could be a horticulturist per se, like sa atin, no? This is under our study, but professionally they can also be aside from horticulturists, they can also be tawag doon, landscaper talaga, specifically for kanang mga art designers na artists. Sa gitaw ana nila kanang sa tigbuhat og mga balay or tig drawing ng mga balay sa tawag ana nila. Sa tawag ana nila, Richard? I forgot.
Architect, ma'am?
Yes. Pastilan na lang. Naglabad magud akong ulo ba, architect, no? So usually it's one of the functions of the architect, no, and which will be very specialized on landscaping, no? So again, the designer organized the plans, the landscape materials, and these are collectively known as the features or names. So ano itong features? These are the visual qualities which are line, form, color, texture, and visual weight. And these are all the elements of design. So kailangan meron siyang elements such that meron siyang supposedly line, form, color, texture, and visual weight. So the principles naman are divided as the fundamental concepts of composition. So dapat itong mga visual qualities na ito should have proportion. So mamaya we will talk about them one by one. Meron silang order, no? Just like how we arrange our things inside the house or our things inside our room. Repetition, so ibig sabihin sometimes we always want to see things not only in order but also again and again, no? So yun yung repetition and unity, and everything we do or we put in our house are related to each other, no? And these are our guidelines to organize our flowers or our plants aesthetically pleasing, or we call it beautiful landscape. So our knowledge on the elements and principles of design is very essential para mag-design ng isang landscape, no, through a process. So these are what we are going to talk about, the elements and principles of design. So again, one of the elements of design is the line. So in a line, the landscape is created by the edge between two materials, no? And outline could or silhouette form or long linear features. So these are very powerful tool for the designer because this will create an infinite variety of shapes and forms. No? So kung maski straight lang na siya, as you can see, mamaya meron tayong example here. We have figure 1 lines in the these are the lines in the landscape. So if you can see here, no? Itong mga lines. So these are the lines that we are talking about. So dapat we can see lines in our landscape. So because these lines will also control the movement, no? They will not only have shapes and form, but they will also control movement of our eye. No, from for example, and also the body of the landscape, no? This will create pattern, develop space, create forms, control movement, no? Like for example, kanang going to inside your house or in your garden, no? Without the line, pwede ka magsigig like mo adto ka magmaski asa ka mo ato, di ba? Tamak-tama ka nimo. But with the line, you are directed to a specific landscape, no, sa isang area from one place to another. And it will establish dominance, create cohesive theme in the landscape. So there are also ways to create the line, no, by two different materials meet on the ground plane, parang mag-ano sila intersection. So that's how to meet. Anyway, this is very basic. So kabalo naman ta maghimog line, no, since grade 1. In mo ginatong na practice bago ka makasulat, maghimog itang line permanente. So but lines per se is not as simple as that, no? In architecture maybe or in your drawing subject, kung niagi mo og engineering, kung nakakuha or nag second course na mo karon, then who among you here na nakatry na maging engineer? So one of the subjects in engineering is drawing, no? So in drawing, there are properties like in lines, we have straight lines. So pag straight lines kasi, we also have curved lines, vertical lines, and so on. So pag straight lines, ano ibig sabihin nun? These are structural and forceful. And they will create formality, no? Kung gusto nimo mag-formal, ang tan-awon ang imuhang landscape or any drawing that you have, you just make your drawing or focus on a line that is straight, no? And usually associated with symmetrical. Kung straight line siya, meaning magka-size, no? Magka-length. So it will also lead the eye directly to a focal point, no? Like for example, diagonal lines. These are straight line na meron siyang intentional direction, kaya siya diagonal. And these are often found sa ating mga landscape edges and material. So we also have curved lines. So itong curve, ito naman, kung ang straight line ay formal, ang curved lines naman ay informal, no? And they are natural, relaxed in character, no? And associated with nature, and they don't need to be asymmetrical or equal, and they make your eye move from a slower pace, and it will add mystery to the space, no? By creating hidden views, no? With the use of curved lines, parang mystical siya, no? Marag something secretive, or this must be something like inside these curved lines, no? So these are example of the circular form pa Mandarin. So makikita natin dito ang mga curved lines, no? Ito, pa-curve. Yan. And aside from that, we also have vertical lines. So ibig sabihin, these are the lines that are upward. Move the eye up, therefore, and make space feel larger. So having vertical lines, like that's the same principle when you are wearing a dress or a blouse. Kung ang blouse nimo is na siya vertical line, so it will make you taller, or kanang mas skinner ka, no? Because of the vertical line. So the upward line can emphasize feature and has a feeling of activity or movement. And in the landscape naman, it will suggest tall, narrow, plant materials such as trees or structures or arbor or birdhouse on a pole. So aside, of course, opposites of vertical is horizontal. So if vertical is going up, so ang horizontal man is along the ground plane, no? Pababa, no? Pahalang. And this will make you feel larger. Kaya pag kayo, kung payat kayo, you better wear na mga horizontal lines sa mga dress or damit. And low lines are more subdued and create feeling of rest or repose, no? Kasi vertical lines parang napaka-active. Pag horizontal, parang resting phase. And spatially divide space or tie space together. And this can be done by using low garden walls, walkways, and short hedges, no? So all in all, lines are used to draw forms on a plan. So before mo mag-landscape, actually, before mo maghimo o if you're an architect, syempre, no, drawing yun mo. So you are going to draw lines of your plan, no? And mas maganda siya bago din yung gawin ang inyong actual na landscaping. So mamaya we'll have a video if we still have time on a sample, no, step-by-step landscaping. So there are 3 primary line types that create form in the landscape. We have bed lines, the hardscape lines, and the plant lines. So ang bed lines, these are the edge of the plant bed that meets another surface material such as yung turf, yung ground cover, gravel, and yung patio pavers. Yung mga bed lines that connect plant material to the house and hardscape because the eye follows the line, no? So ito yun, like kung magtingin ka lang ng mga spaces, yung line will drive your eyes, no, to wherever it goes, no? And hardscape lines are created by the edge of the hardscape, which delineates the built structure and created by long, narrow materials such as fence or wall. So we have a lot of elements later to complement this, principles to complement this element. So we are done with the first element, which is line. Now the second element is form. So ito yung shape created naman by an outline that encloses space, and it's a 3-dimensional mass or form. So these are found on hardscape plans and usually dominant visual element and spatially organized as landscape. And this will also determine yung style ng garden mo. So we have plant beds, garden ornaments na maka-form ng theme ng garden. Whether it is formal or in geometric forms like circles, squares, and polygons. So it can be informal, naturalistic, or including Mandarin lines, organic edges, or for fragmented edges. So using plants, this will create your garden using their outlines and silhouettes, but also can be defined by avoid negative space between plants. So what are these geometric forms? So we have circular first, no? And it is shown here on our photo. Now this is the circular form in hardscape or lawn panels. So you can see if this is your house, therefore ang form niya parang pa-circular yung all over, no? Yung form. So can be full circle or divided into half. So those are all circle. Next is the square form for a variety of features that could be done by using stepping stones, bricks, tiles, timber structure, and this will work with easily for construction. So yung square form can be segmented or used repeatedly para makakreate ng grid pattern. So, and unlike circles, squares are stronger in the edges, no? So sa construction, mas if you're going to make use of mga materials, no, for construction, so or even plants per se, so pag pa-circle form siya, mas dili kaya siya strong as square na form. And this can be lined up overlapping to create unique patterns and more complex forms. So we also have irregular na mga polygons like the triangles, the three-sided polygons, and so on. No, and these are more complex in form, but usually simplicity is the best. No, simplicity is beauty. So wag masyadong complicated yung ating design para and make it simple and beautiful, no? Para dili siya libog po tan-awon kasi basig maski ang nagtan-aw, no, libog kaayo. Naturalistic form, we have Mandarin lines. So these are mimicking the natural course of rivers. So parang streams. So if you have seen, I don't know if you have seen, so you can actually build strings of flowers, no? Mara siya river stream. Nakita na mo ito nga picture? Actually, nasa sa akong album, but it will take me time na ipakita sa inyo. Maybe mamaya i-google natin. So, using only flowers, you can see rivers, no? And those are example of Mandarin lines na pwede mo siya pa, di ba? Mag-mimic siya nga, river siya, pero flower imong gamiton. So, mamaya makita natin na siya, no? And so these are example of the Mandarin lines of the landscape, no? This will add interest and mystery to the garden by leading viewers around the corners to discover new views or spaces. So, like for example, na pathway there, no? And then another here, no? So mara siya naa siya marag pathway na long way, basta pathways, no? They stream or beds, no? So we also have the so-called organic edges. So this will also mimic edges of natural materials such as yung foliage natin, plant ferns and rats. And they can be rough or irregular. So organic lines can be found sa mga gardens na merong creek beds or purposely created na hardscape edges. Ayan, these are example of organic edges na irregular edge of rock garden. No? So, using this material like rocks or foliage, you can create the organic edges. So, marag kani siya ang edge niya to separate, no, the different forms. So we also have fragmented edges or like broken pieces or scattered naman siya. You can also use yung mga stone or pavers para ma-create nimo in disappearing edge or patches or walkways. So this is an example of fragmented edges or stepping stones in a pathway. No, this is very common na murag disintegrated siya or fragment to make a pathway. And we can also, lastly, of course, make plants as forms. No, this is the most enduring quality ng plants. So they are well established, standardized, and the most consistent and recognizable na characteristic. So they can be created by iipon naman, no, massing of plants where the overall mass creates different form in an individual plant. So pag iipon-ipon na nimo na siya, you can actually create different form, no? Like pa-wavy ba, ipa-straight ba nimo siya, vertical forms, horizontal, and so on. So there's a lot of things that we can do. We can create focal point, no? Or yung parang main view or bird's eye. And we also have three forms, of course. Na example here. This can be round, columnar, oval, pyramid, or what's this? Vague and weeping, no? The shrub forms, no? Or upright, vase, shape. These are the different shrub ground cover forms. So meron siya mga cascading, arc, base, round, straw lining, so on. Short, irregular, matte, spreading. So those are shrub forms. And we also have ground cover forms, yung parang nowadays we have a lot of plastic na, no, halimbawa nasa rooftop, and you don't want the real na mga ground cover or mga parang Bermuda grass or grasses na mga turf grass. So you can use mga matte, mga plastic na mga green cover, not to do that. So aside lines, meron ding properties ang form, no? It's very powerful because people can often recognize and identify a feature based sa outline or silhouette. And they can perceive a form when a portion of it is visible. And it will also suggest familiarity and enough for the eye to feel in the rest. And repetition is example of an essential form which create pattern and basic organizational structure of the landscape. Therefore, the form is also a determinant of if it is formal or informal garden, and if it's geometric forms and so on, no? Or compatible ba siya nga form, if one or two striking different forms are good for contrast or for emphasis, and generally forms should have similarities or unified look, no? Meaning dili lang ka basa-basa, for example, sa man ginit kasi meron tayong Zen design, like murag Japanese siya. Pag Japanese kasi nga language, nagi siya bamboo, naa siya rocks, no? And then suddenly naa siya butangan mo siya fountain, no? Or butangan mo siya og ka ng mga disyerto. O diba, dili siya unified look. So kailangan unified look yun siya. If it is tropical, or if it's European or English style, so another na naman na element is the texture. No? When we say texture, ito yung how coarse or how fine is the surface of the plant or hardscape material. So it's the same with food, no? When we eat the food, is it so fine or is it too coarse, no? Rough ba siya? Then, used to provide also variety, interest, and contrast, no? Para makita nimo ang kasi minsan what you can see in your eyes, it's not always true. No, sometimes like you say, lagi like hindi ibig sabihin na nagkita si for example, sila na nakita na ko si Rose ug si Richard nag-uban. So hindi ibig sabihin na nag holding hands na sila sa pagkakita nimo, uyab na sila. Parang ganun ba, no? Sometimes what you can see in the eyes or what you can see in your surroundings can be decisive, diba? Kanang dili siya tinuod, maraga na siya, ang sakit tawag anang, di ba na ay mga picture nga mga pagtutukan nimo siya maayo, ma-reveal ang iyahang form or shape, no? Murag na siya 3D or 3-dimensional effect. No, for example, na tan-aw lagi na putil kay natanaw, no? So because of the effect ng ano. Sometimes kung mapapicture kag mountain nga naka sa river, makita ang kanang iyahang reflection. So nice po diyang effect, no? Although dili na siya tinuod kasi nag-reflect lang siya. So, and also in photography na ay mga dimensions na when you use the different kanang environmental effects na that makes your photo very unique, very that would describe its yun nga contrast, interest, and variety. So yung plants foliage, the flowers, the bark, and overall branching pattern, this all have texture, no? And the size also and the shape of the leaves often perceived texture and general described as coarse, ba, medium, or fine. Yeah, just like the soil, no? There are types of soil. Pag clay siya, very fine na siya, diba? Pag, siguro pag what they call that, the other one? Pag sandy siya, no, medyo coarse siya, diba? Tama ba ko? Of course. So coarse texture is more dominant than fine. Okay, by principle and also, yeah, this is by art, no, by principle, and tends to dominate color and form. That's why pag ang effect niya pag coarse imong material, more dominant talaga siya. While fine texture is more subordinate quality and parang secondary lang siya, no? Pang unification. Pag coarse texture plants naman, it will immediately attract your eye and tend to hold it because the light and the dark contrast of the shadows is very interesting. While yung fine texture naman, it looks like exaggerating distance, no? And gives the feeling of larger, more open space. And rough texture minimize distance, plants appear closer and space feels smaller closer. So that's why, like for example, color mamaya, we will be discussing color. Now, if white ang color ng medyo dako tanawan, no, or white. So the same with white color, your fine texture will also have a larger feeling. So feeling lang na siya, no? Yun yung effect sa tao. No, but it's just actually a fine texture. While yung rough, pag rough naman ang texture mo sa loob ng bahay or even in a space, it will also feel like smaller or more enclosed. So in the hardscape, including buildings, spacious walls, and walkways, texture is very important, no? And it's always a component. So again, we have coarse texture and fine texture. So sa coarse texture, usually large leaves or irregular edges, bold, deep veins, variegated colors. So that belongs under coarse texture, like thick twigs and branches, leaves and twigs and spines and thorns, or bold, thick and irregular forms. So yun ang mga examples of plants na medyo coarse texture. We have philodendrons, the agaves, the bromeliads, the hollies, palms, hydrangeas, and pag rough cut stone, rough finished brick, and finished wood with nuts. So those are mga coarse texture, no? Or aged or old construction material, no? Pag fine naman, this include thin, strappy leaves or mga grasses, no? They are very fine tingnan. And mga dense twigs, small branches, long stems na vines, and delicate flowers. So parang fine masyado ang yung mga delicate flowers. And wispy, light, or with sprawling vining form. So those are example ng mga plants naman are yung grasses, ferns, Japanese maples, vines, and yung mga needle na type of plants. Pag stone naman, smooth stone, wood or ceramic pots, glass ornaments. So yun yung mga fine na mga texture. Smooth water, such as yung nasa reflecting pool, no? Pati tubig, no? Naa siya texture actually, or smoothness. And very fine spray are also fine texture. So sa medium texture naman, these are not actually, cannot be described, but it could be either coarse or fine. So that's why medium. No, na lang siya sa middle. So na siya pagka fine, na po siya pagka coarse. So usually these are mga not densely spaced or widely spaced, and overall form is typically rounded or mounding. And mga medium texture plants naman, such as yung mga coarse or fine texture plants lang din. And agapanthus, ardisia, camellia. So di man kayo ta familiar ani. And flagstone, pavers, broom brush, concrete, and finished woods. So those are examples. So just like any other form, texture also have properties, no? Whether they are texture could be affect your perception, no? For example, no, in life, sabi nga nila, happiness can be just a state of mind or perception ng tao. Like for example, no, whether, oh my God, we are 10 minutes left. So maybe we will just discuss lang the elements. Kasi elements pa lang niya siya, no? It's daghan kaya siya og kuan, lahi pa ng yeah, we're almost done anyway. So next meeting we will discuss on principles of design, which is the culminating na topic natin. So again, going back sa properties of texture, yeah, perception. So it means kung anong pagtingin mo sa isang tao. Like for example, like beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, no? For example, kung sino yung hindi tayo para-pareho ng perception, no? So kung anong maganda sa akin, kung anong maganda sa inyo, like kung ano ang malamig, ano ang mainit sa inyo, depende yon sa inyong perception. And like for example, whatever you have now, if you are very grateful, then your perception is that you are very happy kasi thankful ka sa lahat ng na-receive mo. But then if you feeling mo na agyapoy kulang, no? You can't be happy kasi feeling mo empty ka. So, and so you won't be happy. So depende yon sa perception mo. So if you wanna be happy, so you change your perception. And also, like for example, yeah, those are just examples. Masyado na akong madaldal. So to make a space feel larger, you locate plants so that yung fine texture are along the outer perimeter and medium texture in the middle, and the coarse texture are mga closest sa viewer. So para larger siya ang feeling, no? And the small size of the fine texture recedes in the landscape and is perceived being farther siya away. And to make your space feel smaller, place the coarse texture along the outer, no? So yun yung mga elements na will change your perception, the way how you see things. So yung detail din ng coarse texture will make the plants appear closer, or parang, 'di ba, minsan feeling lagi nimo, no, duol kay siya tan-awon pero layo dai siya, no? Just like when you tagasamal man gid mo, no, abi nimo kanang sana mabaw lang, so lalum dai siya kasi nag-reflect ang mga seaweed sa baba, 'di ba? To make also the detail of the coarse texture makes the plants appear closer and makes the space feel smaller. And perceived texture plants can also change the distance of the plant, just as example that I have said. And coarse close up can look fine texture from a distance, while bold colors increase the contrast and make the texture appear coarse. So even with the application ng color, this can affect yung texture, no? While muted colors can flatten the texture, and hardscape with a coarse texture such as very rough rocks and bold large timbers will make plant appear more medium texture. So, yung mga designer, yung texture study is very important para sa arrangement. And yung drawing will also, like, if naka-visit naman sa Davao Art or sa museum nato diri sa Davao City, na ang dami murag hapit na January pa man karon, no? So in case na mag-open, actually open sila pero naa sila murag tawag murag ganig week, art week. So abangan na ninyo kay mas daghan mong makita. Actually libre ba siya, no? Free lang siya. So you can visit naara na siya sa poblasyon. So the different line weights and spacing will represent the fine, medium, and coarse texture. So, and lastly, so this is an example of the texture study, whether coarse siya, fine, coarse, medium, and fine, fine. So, as you can see, coarse, dagko ka siya tanaw, no? And parang bold. Pag medium, between coarse and fine medyo gamay siya tanawan pag fine. Okay, for color naman, the last element of design is in plant material and hardscape will add interest and the variety to the landscape, no? For example, may mga tawag in the color wheel, if you remember your color wheel, na ay mga complementary ng mga colors, primary colors and complementary. So it's the most conspicuous element in the landscape actually. And usually ito yung focus ng mga homeowners. Anong gusto mong color na bahay? Anong color na sa loob ng pintura? So it is also the most temporary element kasi it will only last few weeks or a year when we are speaking with plants. And these are guided by color theory or the use of color wheel. Yung kakasabi ko lang. And yung color schemes. And when you mix, remember when you mix different colors, it has different effect also. No? So, a simple description of the color wheel includes yung primary colors natin na red, blue, and yellow, the RBY, and the 3 secondary colors or a mixture of 2 primaries, yung green, orange, and violet or purple. So if you mix red and yellow, or it will become green, orange, or violet. Red and blue is green siguro, no? And nabutbuot ko. Red and yellow is orange. You just correct me if I'm wrong, huh? And we have the on the 6 tertiary colors or yung mga adjacent primary and secondary colors such as red, orange, yellow, green, yung mga ganon. So we can also use that in a composition. Like kung gusto mo na siya, ang color niya is something nag-complement or ganing fading or cascading. The basic color schemes could be also monochromatic, analogous, or complementary. So ito yung mga color schemes natin. So monochromatic, if one color lang siya, so I will not discuss further anyways in here. Pag analogous naman siya, it means harmonious siya, no? Meron tayong 3 to 5 colors na adjacent siya sa color wheel. So yung basis lang natin is yung mga color wheels such as the red, orange, yellow, orange. Complementary naman siya pag yung opposite ng sa color wheel siya and they have high contrast, no? Mas maganda siya, kung gusto nyo kag-contrast ka, mas maganda siya, imo siyang i-pair like the violet and yellow, the red and green. Those are the complementary colors. So how do we use these colors in plants and hardscape? We can make our landscape kasi typically we can make it dominant, no, by quantity, or you can make it very attention seeker or capturing attention by using your by using high contrast, no, to the color green, or like mga colors sa building rocks, pavers, wood, and furniture. So these are natural materials na merong typically muted or mayroon siyang variations, no? Or you can use bright colors, no, in the landscape with man-made materials such as painted furnitures, yung brightly colored ceramic containers, sculptures, and glass ornaments. So like any other color, line, form, line, form, and texture, color also have properties, no? These are elements which is very important to make it interesting and to make a variety in your landscape. So these will affect our emotions. So diba, sometimes like when we say yellow, parang bright and happy, no? Pag blue naman, parang basta light, quality, balance, and emphasis. So property ng color relative to temperature could be cool, no? Like yung blue, cool siya, diba, tingnan. Pag warm naman yung yellow or yung black. So this will affect our emotion and feelings. So for example, if you wanna feel in your bedroom, if you wanna feel like a sleepy, so purple siguro na siya, or happy, so yellow, no? Or in love, red. Or parang